breaks because I don't care about air breaks. Honestly, I'm sorry to say, I don't care about air breaks.
Hey guys, welcome to the SG Football Podcast. So right now we're of course in a different part of the house, but it's still my house. We always made that joke, I don't know why. But anyway, we have three special guests of course alongside us today, and it is the boys of the Final Whistle Podcast. How are you guys doing tonight, man?
Good. Thanks for the invite. Lovely to be on the show.
Yeah man, good to see you guys as well. You know, it's always good for us to, come together and speak to each other about, how things are going and stuff like that, with football, and it's always good to have like-minded people, and I have
Hello.
Okay, so we decided to have them here, of course, because we did the whole, the FIFA thing, which we will find out who won, or we probably would have already found that out already by now. So, of course, there will be a forfeit, which we'll discuss later.
Okay. That's news.
That's the surprise. Okay, so, of course, we have the three here from the Final Whistle. Guys, just a quick introduction about yourselves.
Okay, I'll start off first. My name is Deepan. Currently 25. Of course, I host the podcast itself and also come up with the content. And in terms of my background, I'm actually a journalist for the last few years. Still a student, so my journalist experience actually has been about 5 years or so. That is about me.
Yeah, so I'm Kabir. I also host the podcast with Ipan. He does the content, I assist him with the content, and I do the social media stuff.
Nice.
I'm Nazan. I'm 35. Basically, I'm the sound engineer, the editor, basically the back-end guy to these two people. So basically, my background is I've been in the media industry for about
Counting
12 years. 12 years.
So you know how old he is. Can't even use that.
So right now I'm a video editor.
Nice.
So yeah, that's about it for me. Yeah.
Great. So again, it's good to have you guys on the show. Of course, we're gonna delve into like a number of topics here, especially with the whole podcast sphere and what we've been doing for the last, you've been doing it now for how long already for the Final Whistle?
Since February.
Nice. Since the whole COVID thing as well, everything else. Nice. So how did this whole idea actually come out? From February until now, you guys have had quite big success already. With the guests that you bring in, as well as the amount of hits on Spotify and as well as the different streaming platforms. So how did this whole idea actually come about?
Okay, so we actually are all United fans, big United fans. So
I'm gonna sit this one out.
So we actually had a WhatsApp group that was going between three of us as well as about I would say a total of maybe 12 to 13 people in the group. So these are all Singaporeans from different fields lah. So we always discuss United topics and all. And then one day, I think Nas reached out to me to ask me via WhatsApp, would you want to do a podcast? I mean, is it something that you're interested in? And then, to be very honest, in that week that he asked me, I was actually thinking of starting my own podcast. Because I've been listening to podcasts for a long time. I mean, but these are your international football ones, so your Guardian Football Weekly, the United podcast. And then I was thinking, it's like match made, right? The week that I was thinking of, this guy asked me. And true be told, I've never met Kabir in person before, even though we have been in the same WhatsApp group. So somehow we managed to make a plan to meet the following week. And when we met up for the first time, I think the chemistry was there to see from the get-go, and we just thought, why not study? I think in a few weeks after that, we had our first episode. It was all very quick. There wasn't we didn't put it off. We just let's start it on this day, and then we went straight into it. Maybe 1 or 2 days before our first guest, we just reached out to a few people to see who can be our first guest, and of course we started with Ilyas Lee. It's been fantastic since then. Of course we started as a hobby. I would say that because we three had a passion for football, especially local football, we knew there was a platform that could be there, to have conversations with local footballers. But of course, in terms of success, you said one metric that you mentioned was the Spotify hit. So for that was a surprise for us. We didn't expect it to reach the number one for sports podcast in Singapore, and we've used that to try to venture into more stuff, try to monetize the podcast hopefully in the near future. So that's been the story so far lah.
I was just telling him right before started recording. Looking back, I didn't think we would get this far. No, I would say that we would go 30 episodes, but to have this success, quite surprising because local football, I didn't know that there was still this interest in local football.
I think
honestly,
it's like a niche market in local football, and then if you are successful in that market, it kind of you stand out from the rest, and you start to take the interest of people who are not even interested in local football. And you get all these guests, and you feel that they are more interested in listening to who you are as a podcast instead of the guest. And I think it's that kind of chemistry that kind of makes it better.
Do you think we're like that now? Because I don't think so. I think for us the guests are still
the stars.
The guests are the stars, but there's a reason why there's still like a loyal fan base. It's because they don't. If they wanted to just listen to the guests, they would just listen to the guests and stop listening to you.
So sorry, it was an interesting point that he raised, right, about this whole niche, the niche of it. So initially when we actually had our first episode, right, we actually start off the podcast by talking about Liverpool, or I think just EPL, Chelsea. So it was just
EPL was a Chelsea fan.
So for us, the challenge was to find the balance between talking about EPL football, which more people will be interested in, and then bringing in a local aspect, right? But over the weeks, we realized that there's actually a demand for local stories, which is why we realized we totally separated it. We have now the extra time.
Your own extra time.
And also when you talk about niche, so because I've been a journalist and I'm sure you will know, because going to stadiums, the number of people there is awful. I mean, we would love for the stadiums to be filled, but you can see the numbers there. So for me, I was thinking, if there's so few people in the stadiums, how many of them are going to be listening to a podcast, right? But the very first time that I realized that this could actually be something, I'm not sure about them, but the first time I realized this could be something was when we had Noah Lamshah on the show, and then our numbers reached, I think within the first few days, I think it reached about 600, 700 unique plays, and then I realized that's more than what we have seen at some stadiums in the last few months, and that's when I knew, I think there's demand for these stories, especially for older footballers who people want to see again and hear from again.
I think interesting you bring that up because we had Bill last time on the show. He was telling us about actually people are not, let's say, disinterested. They just got jaded.
Yes.
With what's been happening unfortunately over the last few years, they still follow local football, but not to the extent where they probably go to the games and stuff like that. So they're probably jaded. That's why having older players coming and then talking on your show as well. Generally, it definitely spikes up the interest a lot more there. They'll be able to come back and then, hopefully, I mean, same thing as with us. We wish that, there'll be more people at the games as well. I mean, we've seen it as well. I mean, we've been at the stadiums for different games, and it is disappointing lah. But hopefully, with more programs like yours, more programs hopefully like ours as well, we can push the numbers up hopefully. And I think that's the main goal until this COVID thing subsides, unfortunately. But
I mean, it's a disadvantage now, but ultimately when COVID subsides and when everything is over, you still want fans to come into the stadium, and you are hoping that through your podcast and our podcast, we kind of let fans have an interest in local football and let them go to the stadium, at least experience it once and see what it's like, because you always talk about I want to go to Old Trafford, I want to go to Anfield. But
your stadium is how far away? Exactly. You can just go there and just experience it. It's not going to be as uplifting, but I mean, at the end of the day, you are there supporting the people out there on the field who are your own countrymen, and it's something that you really hold true because these people are out there playing for their clubs and everything, and they play for the Singapore national team as well.
I think people also think that Singaporean footballers, they feel this is just a part-time thing for them. That's why they don't really care about playing the matches or what, but it's not true at all, because people actually they put their heart and soul into the club, and they really play for the club, not for themselves.
So okay, we'll just go back to the podcast a little bit. What was the main difficulty? I mean, you guys only had it set up within 2 weeks. What was the biggest challenge in terms of getting everything together set up?
I think the setup was okay, just getting the guests.
Getting the guests is a Ipan will tell you it's a weekly battle.
No, because so the battle initially was because when we had a studio, we record at the Hive. One thing was that we could only book the studio up to 6 p.m. And then we realized all the guests cannot make it, they only make it after 6 p.m. So we had to get a membership there and whatnot. So that was a bit of cost lah. But I think just for the guests alone, I think in terms of planning, I think that has been the biggest challenge for me lah. I think that you gotta be more careful in terms of playing. So like if just let's say the guest cannot make it at the last minute, you need to have plan B and plan C.
Yeah.
I think that's been a challenge, and in a more like a technical way, one challenge that's been for me is, so I've been all along writing, right? I've been doing journalism in terms of writing for the paper, but writing for audience who are hearing you is totally different. So it's a challenge that I'm still getting to grips with. I think it's like the words that I use, the phrases, turn of phrases is very different when you're on a podcast. So that's something I'm still getting used to, but I would say I've gotten much better since the first episode.
Yeah, definitely, because I listened from like the first podcast, and then as I went to the later episodes, you could feel that there was more confidence coming through, especially from the both of you as well. You know, when it comes to hosting and then everything else. So I think it's fantastic to see you guys continue on with this.
Podcast works gradually. You always have to start from somewhere, and then you cannot go worse from there. You only go further.
So like for me, I've never had any media work. I've never done anything like this. And then I thought that we needed some banter between us, but I was not the guy. I was at the start. I was not the guy. I was so nervous. I couldn't get my lines right. I couldn't. Yeah. So I thought. So after a while, then planning is very important. And then from there we work together.
Is when you realize like we also thought that we just do this podcast and then.
Man,
so
just talk but it's much more. It's a lot more than just that.
As much as we are local fans, right? The initial plan was we wanted to do an MMA podcast.
I was like a huge MMA fan, so I was telling him like, why don't we do MMA podcast? He was telling me, MMA, the gyms are filled up, but I don't know if people will want to listen to us. Imagine if I did MMA podcast on my own without anyone. Feel disaster.
Of course, I'm more behind the scenes guy. So that I'm really not comfortable at being the main person. So and then somehow I just thought of Ipan.
No regrets.
I think that's the thing, because I've seen you in stadiums as well, covering games and stuff like that. So for journalist wise, that's why when you brought up the whole transition, I think that's a very important thing, like going from the pad to the actual mic. I think that's a massive.
And even the whole aspect of being brave enough to do it. I think I've had conversations with others in the field who have wanted to start podcasts and just talk about local football, do videos and whatnot, but they all put away their plans because they are fearful of who will watch, who will listen. I would say we had that initial fear, but I think you just got to do it. You just got to do it and then see how it goes. Because if everyone is being put away, then we will never have anyone having these conversations, having a product. Even for you guys, I think you might have had reservations initially, but I mean, I'm sure now you appreciate the fact that you guys came together and do it. I think same for us. I think we have seen the differences. I think one major difference I always talk about when I talk to others about the podcast is after we had Jordan Webb's episode, I had friends who have never watched local football message me to say, I just heard the Jordan Webb episode. But this guy damn cool. The next time got Tampines game, let us know. I want to watch. Like that, even though it was one or two people, right? Like the very fact that they're interested to watch local football because of the episode that we put up, I think like that makes our decision all the more sweet.
I have a friend in Australia who he used to stay here and then he moved. He watched the national team but doesn't watch the league. So after listening to our podcast and then he started playing FM, he took over, I think, Geylang. Then from there he got so invested. Now he's watching the league. So
but these are the stories that we know of because it's our friends. I'm sure there are people who have listened to your podcast, our podcast, who just suddenly have decided to take the interest in local football. I think like that's really what makes it more sweeter than watching our podcast be number one on Spotify. That's a nice metric, but these stories are what like really fall like the sense.
You just need the confidence. Once you have the confidence to actually upload something, you'll be surprised at how many people are actually interested in this kind of content.
I think the best thing about it is that we I think our common goal is not to be at the pinnacle of whatever podcasting we're in, but the main thing is that we want to tell the heartfelt stories that are supposed to be told. I think that's the main thing. That's why we did this in the first place as well. We all did, because we wanted to make sure that, there's so many different stories that are behind the scenes that nobody gets to see. And like we want to try to make sure that, these stories are told. Whether it's the Fundy story, which I heard recently was, that was a fun episode right there. That was a very fun episode to listen to.
You should have seen their faces when Fundy came through.
Then you were mentioning the story about him waving at him.
Oh yeah, man.
It's quite nice. Like one thing is, after some time, and this is not to sound arrogant in any way, right? But because when you've been in the industry for some time, these are guys that you have seen countless times. Like Fandi he's not in my generation. I've never watched him play, but he's still someone I looked up to, and I've seen him so many times, right? But just to see like these two guys like being so starstruck, it really shows that there's respect for Singapore football. Like there is respect from people here, and these guys should know it. So like I think all our guests, when you can hear them speak about it, I mean you can't see it on the podcast, but you can see their faces. They love talking about their stories. Like you can see them like smiling ear to ear. Like they just love talking about their own stories. But the thing is, the reason why they're so happy is because for the longest time, no one has asked them about their stories.
That's one thing I wanted to bring up, because the episode that I loved the most actually was Gavin Lee's one. Because Gavin Lee, when I'm in the press conferences with him, you normally ask him, I think you can ask my photographer here who's been there as well, we usually ask him the questions and then he'll be like, done, that's it.
I call Gavin as we take it game by game. We take it game by game.
That's why when I heard the episode, I was like, when I saw the thing, I was expecting to see maybe 20 minutes like on the podcast, and then suddenly I see like an hour, then I'm like, god damn, this I have to listen to. Then that was the first time that I was listening to it. That I just sent it to them immediately. Dudes, you must listen to this. This one was probably my favorite episode. Seriously.
So another thing that when we're doing the podcast, when the former players come and before they leave, they're like, thanks for letting me
quite sad.
Tell my story. Thanks for having me. Thanks for remembering me, Thanks for remembering me.
I can't remember who actually it was, but one of the guests actually said that, guys, really thanks for remembering me. Shaiful. And it's quite sad. It's Shaiful Issa.
How can forget the left foot?
Exactly.
The sad part was that when he said that when he retired, he called up the papers to share his part of the story, but none wanted to take it up. And it's like, when we heard him say that, it's like, oh my god, man.
To be fair, right? Like I think something similar happened when we talked to Emmerich. Because basically he just came back from a very long injury. So when we talked to him, it was like his first few games he was playing. And then just before SPL started, and he told us, he told you, he was like, thank you for sharing, what you do for local football is very good, and he appreciates us for that. So those small things you hear from players or coaches or what, it kind of makes you want to do more. Motivated,
That's the thing when I speak to these guys as well, the ones behind the camera and here as well, when we go out there, we want to try to make sure that we tell a story. We try to make sure that these people deserve to be, brought out there. I think that should be our main focus, and that's why we really appreciate it. I think for Daras, your biggest experience was, I'm talking to behind the camera, but
the
camera guy, Daras, basically Amirul, and he talked to us about it as well. Thanks to us for doing local football and stuff like that. So I think, honestly, these stories make us do what we want to do, like what we've been doing, and it really drives us to do further.
You don't hear I think I'm gonna quote this from what Javi said in the last episode. You don't hear Didier Drogba texting you after the game saying, "Oh, thanks for supporting me," But you hear Singaporean players, they will DM you and they'll be like, "We heard you today. We heard your support." That's why it's so much more heartfelt. When you go to local games and you go to national games.
That's why the whole Shaiful Issa thing,
exactly.
That's because when he was still playing in the Island White League, I think last year, and when I heard he was playing, I was like, shit, I have to go down and watch, but then I had work and everything, so I was like, crap. So,
and also because he has rarely done any interviews, so when we wanted to get him out, we were thinking, can he really talk? And when he really poured his heart out, we're thinking, oh my god, how can no one wants to listen to his story?
Exactly. It's
okay, this is a question that I'm very curious of. How do you kind of separate yourself from interviewing a player and doing a podcast with it? Where is that line you have to cross?
Or how do you break down the wall?
How do you break it down?
I think initially if you listen to the first few episodes, it sounded like an interview. It sounded like, okay, the guest comes in and then we sit down and then we just bombard him with questions. But I think very early on we recognized that you need to have a conversation. If it's going to be a proper podcast, it needs to be a conversation instead of a Q&A. And I think one thing that we started doing was to have sort of an icebreaker when the guests come in, and I just chit chat with them, talk about certain things for the first 10 minutes or 5 minutes, and then we start recording, and then you realize a lot of these guys are more chill. I think in terms of what we do, I'm not sure if we can do more than that, but the quality of the podcast, right, it comes actually from the guests. So the more free, the more chill the guest is, like Mr. Nolam Shah, then it makes it so easy for us because like we can just ask freely. You look at Bai, I mean if you have heard the episode with Bai also, like it's just so chill like and you even to the extent that like even we want to listen back. Yeah,
it's so chill.
And that was actually we had no intention of doing 2 parts.
And I mean, I'm not promoting vulgarities, but the very fact that they are so open and they just speak like they're at someone's home is really what we want. Because like, if we want to go and see stories that are filtered and not as raw, we have Hesti, we have Today, we have all this mainstream media, but we want to provide something that's totally different where we can pass off the players as one of our like brothers in fact or friends. I think that's what's important for us.
Yeah, so from here, I mean, you guys have done the podcast for the last 6 months. Which is probably your highlight? What's your main highlight? Probably one from each of you lah.
Start first,
my highlight? It's meeting Nolam Shah. I was expecting him to be, he's that figure. He looks very fierce.
Yeah.
When he came, I thought it was like, okay, I'm preparing myself to be this guarded, just be guarded. So they were in the studio, and I think I took a glass of water from the counter. Then I saw him. Then I was like, I waved at him, Kabir. Then he was like, Kabir. From there, all whatever barriers that I put gone. So I got so excited. Then I brought him in, and then we spoke. Like the icebreaker before the podcast, and then I realized this guy he's a human being. We see him as this striker, this player who did whatever he did on the field, being this brash guy and everything. But when we met him,
brash is an understatement.
His name was the best for Tanjong Pagar.
So when I met him, he's a human being with stories. And he told his stories, and I was super impressed. And my respect for him went up tremendously.
That's for you?
For me, it was Bai's episode. Because it kind of surprised me that he was willing to share with his family life as well.
Yeah.
So I always had this perception that he's not gonna share about his personal life. So when he shared it was like, it showed that even though he's a footballer, he played everywhere, but at the end of the day he still had his own obstacle to go over.
Nice.
For me, it was funny. Not so much the episode itself, but what happened after that. So usually once the recording is over, either me or Kabir will see our guest out. So on that particular day it was me. So I brought him to the exit and then I was waiting for the lift, and then he was like, "Hey, how was the episode?" Then I say, "Oh, it was good. I think we had fun." Then he like, "Wow, I hope like this episode go viral lah. Then y'all will become even more popular." Like he doesn't even need to think about that. Like, and we're not even paying our guests to come, but like for him to think that this small podcast that we are, he wants us to grow, and I'm sure he wants us to grow not because he wants us to be successful, but because he wants Singapore football to be at the forefront of it. And I think that's the similarity that we have with all our guests, that at the end of the day, they spend like 1 to 2 hours of their time away from whatever they're doing to come to the show, because the common goal is we all want Singapore football to grow again. And I think that's what makes it like sweet for me, and I think that's a highlight for me.
I think Fandi's exact words was, "I hope this will help you grow."
I hope this will help you grow.
I heard that towards the end of I heard that also towards the end of the podcast as well. I hope this works as well for you guys as well. I hope it was good on my part, and it really shows, like what you mentioned, it shows them as human beings and actually really tells a story, which is fantastic to see that this podcast has done that for players and stuff like that, because I believe these stories deserve to be told.
Actually,
I think that's.
Can I just add the Bai episode? I just remember something. We ended our recording, and then we started talking, continue talking. Then he's like, "Hey, I think this one you can have it on your podcast." We re-record, we record again, record this one. So we set up everything again and then record again because he wants to tell his story. So very genuine guys when you come.
Yeah, but I mean, as what we're saying, we do have these experiences as well with players and stuff like that. Unfortunately, because we are on Zoom, so it's a little bit.
It doesn't feel as like genuine as heartfelt, but we still get our point across, and they're still very understanding about the situation. So we're grateful for that.
I think it's about reconnecting also. I think because for some of us, like for myself as well, I was away from local football for a while, then coming back, speaking to these players as well, I think you all feel the same way as well. I think it's all about giving it a chance and just coming back, and really pushing forward with this whole, at the end of the day, these guys are out there, playing for the Singapore flag and everything else, and why are we, just being Euro snobs and watching European football and stuff like that, when we could be just going to the stadiums and actually watching these guys play.
So just you brought up European football, right? I think some of the conversations I had with fans the fans who don't watch local football is that they say that Singapore's football has gone down because now we have access to English Premier League, La Liga, which is why fans don't go down to local matches. But I think if you look at it from another perspective, which is Malaysia have the same access, Thailand has the same access, but you still see the stadiums being, I wouldn't say being filled, but they have lots of fans attending the matches. So there is no excuse to say that just because now we have access to English Premier League, then our local fans should ignore our local game. Because the more we ignore our local game, then I think the quality will diminish. And like I said, I've shared this fear many times where there could be a day where we don't have our own league to call. Like if that day happens, then I think we all have a part to play for that to have happened. So I think let's all come together and really ensure we can bring as many fans back to our local game as possible. In whatever way.
The biggest excuse international football fans have on not watching local football is they say that local football very boring, all very shit. You see United play, you see Tanjong Pagar play, you see Tanjong Pagar play like shit, and then
United also play like shit now.
You want to see Tanjong Pagar win 4-3 or United lose 6-1. There's a difference.
No, but I mean, even in every league has its boring games. Like I remember last weekend. I think it was on a Friday night. Burnley played Brighton and Saints played Newcastle. That was two of the most boring games I've seen in a long time. And the local games I've watched in the last few weeks have been brilliant. So it's just that people use it as an easy excuse. I'm at the comfort of my house, I can just watch English Premier League easily. Where do I go and watch? They don't know. That's another thing. They don't know how to watch SPL games because they've not been exposed to it. I don't think, in a sense, our FA or the people around there have done enough to put this product at the forefront of things. I think that's a criticism.
You can watch it for free on YouTube or Facebook, and you don't have to go on different illegal websites to stream European games.
But do you do that?
I prefer not to speak.
If you speak, you are in trouble.
This is the last episode of the SG Football Podcast. Thank you for coming. But that's the main thing. I think people should at least try to give it a chance. I think that's the main thing. Like what we mentioned about last time with the episode with Jarvis and Dill, I think we can do as much as we can. We can try to drag down these people. Just give it a chance. You might not like it, but that's up to you. As long as you come down, you watched it. If it's not your cup of tea, then forget it. Stuff like that. I think that's the main thing for us. We have gone down to local games. We have all gone down to local games. We've seen the passionate fans and everything else, and I think that's what drives us further to watch more games, do what we do.
They are so passionate, and Geylang,
the Ultras,
the Ultra Eagles, they give so much to their club, and these are people that they stay in the same block as you, and they give so much passion to the club that's just opposite your house, the stadium that's opposite your house. So why can't you show the same energy? You know what I mean?
Yeah, why show the same energy for people that are staying God knows how long away, while there's a stadium probably just 15-20 minutes away from your house.
You see people with shrines of their team, their international teams, but you can just cross the road or take a bus, go to a stadium and watch real games for yourself.
Yeah.
But I would also say it's gone down to the marketing as well. Yeah, I mean, as much as you want people to care for your league, but if there's no marketing, at this day and age, there's no way for you to survive.
I think it's all about pushing as much as possible. That's why for us as well, we try to push as much of the local game as possible. We on our Facebook we have shameless plug, I know, but we have watch parties on Discord and everything like that. I mean, there's so many ways that we can.
It's not a shameless plug. It's good marketing.
Okay, put it that way. I'll take it. Oh man, but that's the thing. It needs to be better marketing.
When it started, in 1986, we had Panini stickers.
Oh, those were
We had
great.
badges.
Yeah.
And like I'm a huge Geylang fan,
Mm-hmm.
And an old one at that.
Panini stickers. S-League Panini stickers.
I got one Panini sticker book like behind me. Later
Yeah,
I'll
I
bring it
had
out.
like an S-League Panini, I was like thinking, wow, I get to see these guys, playing at Bedok Stadium,
Yeah.
it's only like what, less than 2 kilometers away from my house.
Though you needed binoculars to actually watch the thing.
So it's like, like, I would say that the level of marketing back then was much better than it is now.
Yeah. I mean, we look at the crowds as well. There were some old videos that were being posted up of the older games. We saw like Bedok Stadium being full to the brim, and I was like, wow.
And for me, as a young kid, having to queue at Bedok Stadium, just to watch a game, it's like, oh my god, it's
Invigorating.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I think that's what's missing.
Honestly,
now.
I think there was a resurgence in the love of local football when the Lions 12 came to be.
That was a little bit.
There was a little like you see the whole like sports up pack just to watch like Bahaki Kazan score a header and win the match. It's like, and they even won the cup.
Okay,
but the thing is,
honestly, it didn't spill over to the local league.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
But that's the thing.
the local league
Actually,
suffered.
we can't really say it was local because at the end of the day they were playing in the Malaysia.
Yeah.
They were playing in
Yeah,
Malaysia.
But I think he's right in a sense where there was interest in
there was,
local
yeah.
players.
But it was like kind of sad that like they play like 24 hours before the SD game, and it's like you can see like there's a packed Jalan Besar Stadium.
Yeah.
But the next day, Tampines against Hougang, it's like barely there, people.
Yeah.
But I think you got to think outside the box lah. I think the more you keep saying that like but there's no spillover effect to your local football or local league, but then you're not looking at the merits of it, which was there was interest from media, there was interest from Singaporeans. Like Jalan Besar was filled in every home game. Like I feel like you could have used that to then put it into your local league. But we didn't use that. For us, we were more keen on complaining, but our local league not there. But I feel like you could have used that success to then spill over into your local league.
Little confession, like that's how I got interested.
That's how I got started.
Into when I saw Lions 12 and everyone was just behind it, I would watch every game of Lions 12 and like that's why I'm thinking like why don't we bring back Lions 12? Why can't we put them in Malaysian Cup? But then you realize that the local league is still going on and nobody is going to watch
it will
it.
suffer.
That's why I think it's not that we don't want to be there, but they don't want us.
That's the thing.
But also because like for us, we watched the league from when it started, and then we've seen how everything got from really good to good, and then got just progressively worse. And then to see the same the numbers from the early days at the Lions 12 games, it just pains our heart because the best players are now being taken from these clubs and then put into one franchise club and then played in a foreign league.
Yeah.
It just pains my heart lah. And it's so bad that and it's also bad that the marketing for Lions 12 was super.
It was super.
Yeah,
it was everywhere.
on
There were
Starhub,
ads and everything.
everything. And then they even had the jersey was even actually not bad.
The jersey was nice.
It was
nice.
nice. And then you inspired the generation, like you inspired that inspired Ruben, that inspired Dipan. And if you can continue that into the S League at the time, I think we would have gotten like a new generation of local football fans. That would also spark a resurgence. The problem I had was when Lions 12 started. I think the FAS said that there's going to be a spillover effect that will bring fans to the league. But we didn't see anything. We didn't see any of that. So that really pisses me off lah when people say Lions 12, we should bring back Lions 12. Sorry bro, no offense. No. We should bring back Lions 12.
I think it's not about like just bringing back Lions 12, but we can bring back Lions 12 because like I said, Kabir say we shouldn't bring back Lions 12 and he's very very keen on that. But the last time we saw crowds at a local football game was the Lions 12. You cannot disagree with that. Like that was the last time we saw a proper crowd in a local football game. And then our main goal is to want a local crowd at local games. And that's been the most recent success.
Instead of Lions 12 being like a permanent club, it should be like a seasonal. Just play in the like AFC Champions League. While the players in Lions 12
I had a bit of a snow. Why?
Because Lions 12 says it's raw.
while the players in Lions 12 play for like the local leagues, it's just like seasonally, the like Champions League or something, we just put the LionsXII in, you know. So at least there's still a big fan base, and if they like, let's say I like Haris Harun and he plays for Tampines Rovers. Let's say I watch Haris Harun play in the LionsXII, then the next week I watch him play at
Because some fans do follow players as well.
So which is why I say we should think outside the box. So once LionsXII was over, right, and then you ban these players in like maybe 5 bands, and then you do something like a draft system. So okay, all these clubs, you guys will get a preference of which players you can take, and then these players should just be able to go into these clubs. Then it would have worked. But what we saw was once LionsXII ended, it was a scramble.
There was a bulk of
Yeah,
them.
going to one club. I think it was Tampines for most of them, and then that doesn't work because like then you realize that most of them are going to one club, and then it's not going to be interesting enough for me.
It's also because
and
like
the smaller teams suffer
of their financial situation, especially like we all saw what happened to Warriors, and you know,
don't tell me about that.
Yeah,
Don't remind me.
it's because there's no financial system in these clubs, and that's why they can't afford the players, because as soon as they're LionsXII, their pay, like their value just goes up so much higher, and that's why they go to clubs like Tampines, and then even after that, now most of them are playing in the Thai league and the Malaysian league.
Without LionsXII, you've never seen players like Shadan, you've never seen players like Safwan even get the Australian stint. It all happened because of LionsXII. So I cannot, with the right state of mind, say that LionsXII was a bad idea, because if you ask the players, it was the best thing that's happened to local football in the last few years. You ask them, they will tell you that straight up. The reason that contracts went up, the reason why they were able to afford the lifestyle that they live now was because LionsXII was created. And that was the honest truth that we have to address.
But if you put that kind of that money they put into LionsXII, into the local league, and that kind of marketing into the local league, we could have maybe seen a much better local league now. Of course, we can't tell. We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't
have the pressure.
But then I just wonder, what if that money was put into the local league? What if we could have saved Warriors?
Just more investing.
Exactly. What if we could have maybe a proper local team to play the Champions League every season? Why not? I think that would also bring contracts in. That would also bring players' wages to another level.
But you also want the league to be balanced. You don't want just one team dominating every single season, like how it is in some European leagues.
I mean, even Malaysia.
Even Malaysia. We have that one team.
That one team that wins every year. You don't want that kind of situation. So you want to balance it out. You know, each like team has this much of financial help, and like the draft system, like you said. So we have like one team, one very good player in each team, and I think it will be more consistent, and it will generate, like, the coaching also has to be superb, and it has to generate more and more and more players that will be able to succeed, whether it's not in Singapore and other leagues. People who come to like the local league in Singapore, people who start in the local league, their end goal isn't like stay in the local league, win everything with my hometown club. They want to go
to venture forward.
Venture forward. But I think it's best if they actually can start saying like, I want to win. Like, let's say a Tanjung Pagar fan, a Tanjung Pagar player, he should be passionate for his club and be like, I want to win the AFC Champions League with Tanjung Pagar.
You like to reference Tanjung Pagar?
No, because I tell you, I was a Warriors fan, but the Warriors disappeared. So I can't like, my first ever local game was Warriors versus Young Lions. It was 4-3, I remember. Joel Shibamba scored final minute. I still remember the scenes that day. That day I was like, I know, I'm going to support Warriors afterwards. 3 years later, it's gone.
Which sucks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, before they were Warriors, they were SF, and they were super successful. And then now they might come back next year, but they won't be as powerful as they were.
Yeah.
Which is very, very sad.
I think after Alex Weaver, that was when everything went downhill, which was unfortunate. That's another part that we have to bring up. The whole, now with dominating teams, the foreign teams. Let's talk about that. That's going to be an elephant in the room that we're going to have.
Sensitive question.
Yeah, that's.
Come on,
What? Not you. No. What?
Ipan, you want to lumber for this one?
We have to address that as well, because I think we had we had a conversation last week which unfortunately didn't make it into the podcast because of certain words that were said, unfortunately.
Okay.
But I think that's the thing we have to address is foreign teams in our local league.
Yeah.
So wait, are we allowed to talk freely on this topic, or we need to put a barrier in front? No? Because it can get quite feisty.
I think as long as you give good, if you give an opinionated,
I think it's a matter of how we phrase it.
Yeah.
I think we'll definitely want
Don't-
to keep this in as long as we phrase it in a.
don't be like.
I was not
"Fuck
going to say
this
fuck
club."
yeah, that was the thing that we got. Fuck DPMM, I'm like, wow.
Yeah, like I'll be very honest, right? If you ask me straight up, should we have foreign teams in the league? My answer is no. Any time that you ask me, I'll say is no, because there is no can you tell me which league in the world? I mean, we don't talk about England where you can consider world clubs, right? Like that's different. But I'm talking about a professional league. We are a professional league. Which country does it?
Yeah.
It's only Singapore. And to me, in the past there was a benefit. I could see the benefit. Albrechts was such a strong team where playing against them, you know, you just improve your standard.
Yeah.
But it is really not the case now. Like you look at Albrechts now, we can win. The local teams can win that. Okay, the most recent result with them winning Hougang 4-0, I think that was a one-off. But you look at Tampines, they can match Albrechts easily. They won them 2-0. I think our LionsXII Sailors can easily win them, but of course they lost 3-2 the other day. But to me, I just don't see the merits of it anymore. We talk about DPMM. I think we had Gary on our show most recently, and he was talking about how it's because of bilateral relations that we have DPMM. I'm sure you can have bilateral relations without having DPMM in your league.
Having DPMM is okay because of like how Singapore and Brunei have that relationship.
Yeah.
So I guess having one team, but I don't understand the situation with Albrechts. You know, why you want to get a team from?
No, the thing is where I disagree with that is that for DPMM, it's the amount of leeway that they've been given. Unfortunately, I mean, if you are able to, you know, go along with what Albrechts have done, you know, they made a home base here. I mean, they don't have to make a home base here, but I mean, you know, to take on local players, to actually develop them as well, go through the whole Japanese way of mentality when it comes to playing football, it definitely helped some of our players. Adam Swandi is one massive example who honestly is fantastic, you know, and that's the thing, it really helped him a lot, you know, develop his game under the Japanese tutelage at that point of time. So for me, DPMM,
maybe
Albrechts,
have like, why don't Albrechts stay in Japan but like have that kind of like two-way
bilateral
relation? Yeah.
So you talk about this whole Japanese players, Japanese tutelage, right? One possible idea that I threw up during our podcast was this. Okay, you talk about having Japanese footballing philosophy. Why not we have each club adopt one or two Japanese players? Why can't it be that way instead of having one Japanese team in our league and then you take away another local team spot? You know what I mean? Like people say, oh, without Albrechts, are you sure you can find local teams to you know, come into the league?
Yeah.
I'm sure whatever resources the FS spends on having DPMM and Albrechts here, that pool of money can be used to bring one NFL club up. And
bring back your Warriors.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And honestly, this is something I'm saying for the first time. I have had conversations with NFL club chairmen, NFL players. Some of them are super ready to come up. It's just that because they have already contacted FS about it, and I heard that, you know, the discussions didn't go the way they want to, but there is interest from NFL clubs to at least have one of them back in, not say back, or have one of them in the league. And I think that would be super. I'd rather see a LionsXII Sailors take on Yishun Sentec or Tiong Bahru than to see Albrechts, because I don't care about Albrechts. Honestly, I'm sorry to say, I don't care about Albrechts. I care about the Singaporean players that play for them, but I do not see the value of having them in the league in 2020. If you ask me this question 5 years back, by all means I will say they're good for the league, but right now I just don't see it.
Imagine Woodlands Wellington comes back. I remember when that existed.
Yeah, we all do.
They have some of the most passionate fans in the league.
Yeah, they do. And like some of the players that have come out of the whole Woodlands area as well.
Gombak United also.
Gombak, don't mind me. Stadium is right there.
It's just there, standing there, nobody goes there.
Yeah, but that's the thing about it. I love going for NFL games. I think NFL clubs, you know, you see some of them are very well run. And that's the thing, I think there's got to be a way of having a little bit of a relegation or a promotion system, because right now there's no, I don't know whether it's the right word to use, but there's no accountability. I finish bottom, that means okay, I finish bottom, I get the wooden spoon, that's about it. There is no price to pay if you finish bottom.
That's why there's no like competition.
Yeah, that's why sometimes that's the unfortunate case lah, in terms of foreign, and in terms of like a relegation system.
And then I think also like competition wise, right, there should be competitiveness in like rivalries. You know, the rivalry Geylang and Tampines, right? That's like you have that one, but that's it. Like that's like having Liverpool and United, but not Spurs and Arsenal. You know, so you need to have like
a few.
Sorry, no content. No content.
So like you need to have that kind of, you need to implement a rivalry system with all the clubs, you know, so that at least they have competition, and even the fans will be more passionate and they will want them to beat this thing, not just like they will think every game is just a friendly. You know, you have to have that drive. You must beat this team. But unfortunately, we don't have that as of now.
But I mean, without being too negative, I think some of the better moves that the league has made, or FAS has made, you know, to try and get Home United or LionsXII sailors privatized, I think that's been a good decision that I think I hope will spill over to the other clubs to realize that the merits of privatization is there lah. I think I hope, you know, LionsXII sailors are the forefront for that. And in terms of just the overall league itself, I think one thing I realized over the last few weeks is that I realized the young Lions have good talents. I think in the last few years we have not really seen that, but I feel the current batch, you know, they have quality players, and maybe we are seeing the merits of how our development has changed a bit, because I think we saw how our age group teams were not doing too well over the last few years, right? But I feel like, you know, with the 2034 goal in mind, I think they have been beefing up the youth squads, and I think we might see the merits of it in the years ahead, which I do hope so.
Yeah, I think that's another thing also to bring up, is like whether the young Lions system has actually worked, you know, bringing them up into the local leagues and stuff like that, how it's worked. I think it's definitely a good way for them to build up, and I mean, with last year, I mean, they had Fandi as coach as well, the last season, and I think, you know, for a young player, I mean, if you play under Fandi, wow, that's like the massive dream right there, you know. And I think that's something that our young players really have really taken a foot to lah, which is, you know, playing under coaches like Fandi, you know, playing under Singapore legends. I think that's a massive.
They have inspiration lah.
Yeah. About young Lions, right? Like one really key point that came up over the last few weeks was when we had Subramani as our guest, and he raised this point that I've never thought of, right? Which was, young Lions are playing in the professional setup in the league. So when a young Lions team beats, let's say Tanjung Pagar, since you love Tanjung Pagar so much.
Just an example.
Yeah, we like to say like, wow, Tanjung Pagar beat, young Lions beat Tanjung Pagar. Yeah. But one thing I didn't think of previously was, if a professional team like Tanjung Pagar loses to what is effectively an age group, a development team, it says a lot about your league also. That you have a professional team in your league setup that's not able to beat a developmental team. Yeah. So I think in a sense, one scenario that I would love to see is, you know, the disbandment of the young Lions, to see those players spread out between the clubs, and then now you will see a good core of under 23 players in each side.
I fully second that.
Yeah, because right now you speak to any coach, right, with the exception of maybe Gavin, because I think Gavin has a good bulk of under 23 players, but the rest of them, the under 23 players, and I'm really not being mean here, I'm being very factual in the sense where the coaches know that these guys are not up to it yet, and that's because most of them know that they'll be walking into the side. They can play super badly for this game, they still know they're in with a sharp to start the next game, because there's not much competition for under 23. But if these young Lions go to all these clubs, then you have like maybe 6 or 7 of these under 23 players that are fighting for 3 spots each week. Then I think that works lah.
You need to have people, but like that being said, you also need to have people that can develop these players. Because as of right now, only the coaches at Young Lions know how to develop them fully. And coaches in other clubs, they don't currently integrate them into the team.
Gavin has done really well with that. I think that's one thing that I really admire about Gavin, is that he really puts these players like up into the forefront. We looked at Joel Chu last year.
Yes.
He really played very well, you know, in scoring that goal in the Singapore Cup final.
Just look at Shah Shahir.
Shah Shahir as
he's
well,
a prime example of what happens when you have a coach who believes in you and who is daring enough to put development at the forefront instead of just results itself. And which is why I say, like, you know, people question me, you know, why do I keep talking about Gavin, because he's showing that he can make the right moves by not being just selfish. Because I think some coaches are selfish because I wouldn't say selfish because you are judged based on results. You know, no one's gonna say like, hey bro, you finished last in the league but you developed 5 players. No one's gonna say that. Let's be honest. They will talk about results. So I think just finding a balance is a hard thing for the coaches in Singapore.
It is also like, it gives competition among the players also. So people are not comfortable with their their starting position. So let's say this left back, there's a up and coming left back in the team, hasn't played yet, but there's this starting left back. Let's say he has a very bad game. He scores like 5 own goals. Say only.
Now Kelong already, bro.
I've been investigating the fellow. I've been investigating the guy.
He knows for a fact that he's not going to play for at least the next few games because he knows there's someone coming up and going to replace him for a while. And if he does well, he may not even play ever again. So you know that there has to be that kind of pressure for them.
It's not just football. You look at any industry, right? If you're in an office, when you know that there are people who are working as or maybe more hard than you are working, you know that your position is under threat, and then you try to do OT, try to put in more stuff. And even same as for me as a journalist, if I know that a fellow journalist is getting the scoops, writing this and that, and then I have no stories of my own, I know I have to work harder. And that's the thing. I don't think the Football Association has thought of that enough to realize that these players need to be kept on their toes Monday to Sunday.
I think that's the biggest thing. I think with playing in a team, there needs to be competition. I think we all agree on that. If there's no competition, then why are we all here?
Yes.
What are we here for? I think that's the main thing.
And also, I think because play development should come under the clubs.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean
that's a big thing as well. I really do believe that as well. The club should be trying to develop as many younger players as much as possible, bringing up from the youth development coming up as well.
Like for now, I understand from their point of view is that okay, I'm going to develop this player A. I know next year if he performs well, Young Lions going to take him. So and then I don't gain anything from it.
I think there's also that system that some people disagree. Unfortunately, that's the kind of system that we are in now, which is
Young Lions should just stay as a national team, under 23 national team. Then everyone plays for the Young Lions, but only the selected few. Because I think the national team also is very badly affected because you have people who are playing in the local leagues. They all will have a spot in the national team, but you go to other countries, even Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia. These places they need to fight for a spot in the international team because I feel like the national team in Singapore is way too weak. I hate to say it, but it's true. You want to have the best of the best, but you can't have the best of the best if you're just gonna pick the Young Lions all the time. So that's why there has to be competition among all Singaporean players in the SPL to get a spot for the national team.
I still think they need to be put under pressure also. That's the main thing.
If let's say I'm playing for Tanjung Pagar, okay, and if let's say I don't get called up to the Young Lions, I know that that's it. I won't have any chance of representing, playing for Singapore. So I mean that also plays on your mentality as a young player.
Although that has changed a bit I think in the last SEA Games squad you did see players coming from Tampines, other squads other than Young Lions. So I think that problem used to exist, but I think not so much now. Which again proves my point that you can leave development to the clubs because you can't say that it hasn't worked. We have seen examples where Hougang with Hans Zulkifli, you have seen with Tampines with Shah Shairan, Joel Chu, that you can leave development to the clubs and you can still work out because again, I'm using this example again, you cannot find another example of another country doing development this way where you have your under 23 players playing together in the same team again and again and then thinking that because of that this team will perform in the competitions because it doesn't work that way.
They need to be playing, against each other, probably against other teams as well,
I don't know why the SPL tries so hard to be different than other teams when other teams are actually doing so much better than the SPL. Because you're integrating all these kind of stupid things. Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
No, I mean it is what it is.
But you're integrating all these kind of things. But you know that other countries are not doing it. Other countries are more successful. So why are you still continuing? You can't be different all the time.
It's the definition of insanity, using the same thing and expecting a different result. Arsene Wenger. Okay, sorry.
So the thing about our league now is when we look at other professional leagues, we see, for the lack of a better word, we see men playing. We see proper players, proper men, proper professionals who live their life just playing football. But when you look at the Young Lions, they are full-time students. They are kids. They are kids.
And it's just unfortunate.
How are you going to expect them to develop and then
Get battered every single week.
get better just playing amongst kids.
Yeah.
And then going against men.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah. And it's become so predictable. You know, I had one friend who told me this, and I can vouch for this as well personally. That anytime there's a Young Lions game, you're looking at making some money. Like because you know what is going to happen. Okay, maybe in 20 games, something one-off might happen in the 20 games, but you know. Yeah, but you know what's going to happen all the time, and that shouldn't be the case in a football match, right? Like you want something unexpected, you want a fight, you want real competition, and we don't have that with Young Lions player. And you can't blame the players.
In hindsight, it was a good idea. In hindsight, it might have worked out, but unfortunately, it's gone.
Because it started with a really, really good generation.
Yeah.
That generation was, I think I would say, the golden generation. Started from there, and then I think maybe someone got complacent, and then so
it's already
just
tried
to decline.
It hit a decline. That was the unfortunate.
Anyways, I think we've been too negative on the subject. So
positively, how about the national kid?
Hey, the national kid, yes.
Honestly, yeah, the national kid. So no, but like positively, right? A positive thing which I liked about the SPR is they haven't kind of like what Singapore, like what the Olympic team in Singapore is like. They've always tried to integrate foreign talent into the team. Singapore, the SPR hasn't done that yet. They did try bringing like big players like what's his name, Jermaine Pennant. They brought him into Tampines. He played like one season and he left, and it was like it wasn't good financially for the club. So I think they realized like that you don't need big players to get fans. You know, you can just get players who are willing to play for the club, and they can get revenue. Then you have to think. You can't think like a big club in a small country like Singapore. You have to think small. So you have to think like, okay, I only can make this much of money. So why don't I get local players? Why don't I invest in youth development? You know, because you don't have to pay them as much. You know, so it's a lot better. I'm very happy that Singapore does it this way instead of just like how the Chinese league does it, where they just get big players and they get fans. Because it's pointless, you know. You get it's like a Goliath playing with 10 Davids. It's very
and I don't think the Chinese national team has seen any benefits of the CSL.
But I disagree though. If you have better marquee players in the marquee player system, we have marquee players in the league. You can bring eyes and butts to seats. Yeah. Which happened. I think we discussed this with Sasi on Final Whistle. He said that when Pennant came, they had this. They poured money into the marketing. Yeah. You saw Pennant's face on the in the MRT and everything. Yeah. But after a few games, it just died down. And then the attendances also declined. Yeah. So again, marketing is very, very important for our league. Yeah. If you have even for JDT, if they didn't start with Aima, I'm sure they had the plan to bring Aima and then bring eyes to JDT, and then from there just kick everything off. Yeah. You have to start somewhere. Yeah.
You look at JDT.
They brought Batista in for I don't know.
But as a player, I think they brought in Pablo Aima and Dani Griza because these are players that were well known, right? But they soon realized that it doesn't really help the team. Yeah. Because you might have these players who are going to be out for some time because of injury, because they are of a certain age, right? And then they realized, I think with the expertise of Alistair Edwards, who came in on board, to realize that we need players who are of quality and we can pay them a certain bracket of money. And then you saw suddenly they brought in quality players. They had Antonio as a centre back, and then now you look at the team now with Diego Santos as a forward as well. They are a proper team with proper quality foreigners. I think in terms of foreigners, bringing them into the league, it has to be quality. They don't have to be big names, but you look over the years. When you talk about foreigners, there are certain names that roll off very easily. I mean, you talk about Grabovac in the past. You ask anyone in Europe, do you know who is he? They won't know. But here, they were so revered because they were so good at what they did. So it doesn't have to be big names. It doesn't have to be marquee, like what Kabir says. But it has to be quality foreigners. And if you look at our league right now, Stipe is one name that comes to mind when you talk about quality. But I mean, across the board, like, let's be honest. Again, I'm not being mean. I'm being very honest by saying these are really not the foreigners that a local will look at and say like, hey, he deserves to take my spot today, like, you know. That's the problem.
Actually, going back to the topic where you said that Albrecht shouldn't be in here. What if European clubs, like let's say, who has good academy? Lille has a very good academy. Lille, like their B team comes to Singapore and they play there, and like instead of having one team or that, they go to different teams in Singapore and they all play. Then when they go back, when they play for the first team, they will say like, my development in Singapore is very good, and people will be interested, and more people will come to Singapore. Even when they retire, they may just come back to Singapore and they will play there. So I think there is an advantage of bringing like developing players into Singapore, but that's only if they can be developed properly here.
I think we have tried semblance of it lah. So I think when we had like Eto'o come here, we tried to get people like Jonathan Toto, Serena Kamara, we tried to get them playing for young Lions in the hopes that we might convert them into national team players, but I mean, who is still here now? Serena went back, Jonathan went back, so I think they have tried it, but it hasn't quite worked yet lah.
On the topic of converting to I have to bring this up again, but not bring this up again, but I have to, like basically on the topic of converting people into national team players, right? We've seen what happened when we wanted someone to play for the national team. What's his name? Ben Davies. He was supposed to play for national team, but then he was like, when he got signed with Fulham, he was like, the Singapore government was like, no, you have to do your NS first, you have to do this first, and that was a disadvantage for him because if he went for NS, he can't play football. And he wouldn't have the chance to be in Fulham. He's getting first team minutes for Fulham and they're back in the Premier League. So people, I think Singapore, I feel like they think like, it's Fulham, it's like a relegation team in England. But that's the furthest someone can go, especially from a small country like Singapore. You don't expect them to play for Manchester United, right? So I think like they always care about like the Olympics and like Joseph Schooling. Joseph Schooling was exempted from NS. But what about people like Ben Davies who could have brought like the Singapore name up when he was playing in Fulham? Now he's a Thai player, and we lost a gem in that situation. We don't think we'll see another one for at least.
For sure. I agree with him that I wish that situation was handled a bit differently. I think when you look at the perspective of him bringing up Joseph Schooling, because we knew that he could go on to win an Olympic gold medal, we gave him some sort of leeway. I wish and hope that we could have handled the situation differently. I think we might have seen the merits of it, because like I said, you look at a Singaporean potentially playing for a Premier League side, it will create waves of effects that we could have brought into our local game.
It was a good thing. It was a better thing for him to have renounced his citizenship. By the way, Ben Davies, if you're watching this, I'm a very big fan of you. I don't feel.
This is what I have to deal with.
I don't feel bad that you had to leave Singapore, but if you could change your citizenship, maybe come back.
But I mean, we do have one more. I think Perry Ng plays for.
Perry Ng.
Yeah.
He is. I forgot. Yeah,
he did speak about playing for Singapore.
You want a message to him?
What, Perry Ng?
and there's one more. The grandson of a minister.
Grandson of a minister. That one is not. That one is Singapore, man. I thought he Brunei or something.
No.
The Brunei player
The guy
in
that
Leicester.
played for.
That's a fight ball,
Yeah,
The
that's
one that plays for Sunderland. Not Perry Ng, there's another one.
Penny Satan.
Luke O'Neill.
Yes, Luke O'Neill.
He plays for Sunderland and he's been doing well, so he also can play for Singapore. But I think when you talk about all these players, right, there's so much that needs to be done before you can get them here, because they would have to not be playing in these leagues, for them to play for national
But
team.
someone who is actually successful, like overseas, right, is Iksan Pandey, and he's playing for Germ, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, he first tier, top tier Norwegian league.
But
he's
I think
doing
because
very well.
And he did his NS.
yeah, Fandi,
Yeah,
that's the thing. Because I was listening to the whole Fandi episode as well, it's so interesting on how he made them go into NS. Iksan was only 17, I think, at that point of time.
Erlen is in NS right now.
Smart father.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
he made a decision early for the kids.
I think he did share that he asked them, do you really want to do this? If you want to do this, then I will plan it for you.
Yeah, I remember I was listening to it like during lunch, and I was like sitting down just listening to it. It's like such an interesting story, you know, to hear him actually really facing importance on how it's his own kids' decisions to make to want to do this.
I think the Ben Davies situation would have been a lot smoother if he had completed his NS. If he didn't complete his NS, I think it was like.
But then again, I think the one thing is that because his father unfortunately, as in his father is British, so of course his father wouldn't have understood how.
For sure, that's a big thing. I mean, for Andy, because he loves Singapore so much, right? He would have done whatever it takes to get his son to play for the national team.
So that was the biggest thing. Okay, so now of course before we wrap up, of course we want to know about, you know, what is the next steps for Final Whistle. I know you released the episode with LionsXII. I think it's coming out soon, right? So what's the next goal after? What's the next goal after for you guys?
After, what can we say?
I mean, I'll just talk.
This one I think.
I'll just talk about it. So,
okay to reveal.
I mean, we can just review lah. We have been doing podcasts for about 30 episodes now with our guests, and I think that we got to think about other mediums lah to put out content. And one area that we've been looking at for some time now is YouTube lah, because we do realize that, you know, video and visuals are very different from a podcast. So we've had like some ideas in terms of what kind of visual content that we can put out. Still in planning stages, of course. We haven't really, you know, put up anything yet. But you know, when December and January comes around, we are thinking of doing proper video content.
Nice.
And this could be your, you know, regular talk show kind of setting, or even going out with a potential footballer, you know, to his area where he grew up. Because we've seen these kind of videos in other platforms like away from football. So we feel like we can do something local football related lah. So I would say video is something we are planning on doing, and in terms of the podcast itself, we will still keep on going. You know, we've had this question before, like, you know, what if you run out of footballers to interview? I think that's very hard to happen lah, because you have so many former footballers, former coaches, current players. And yeah, so this is the plan. I think YouTube is a space that we hope to get into as soon as possible.
Very nice. And for you guys, what would you have to say for people who are planning to, you know, jump onto this space, you know, in terms of podcasting and, you know, covering local football, whether football or anything, you know, like you were talking about an MMA podcast as well, you know, what advice would you guys give to people who are looking to go into this kind of spectrum?
Okay, just go first. If you want to do it, just do it. But know your content, know what you're going to talk about, and just prepare. Just have good preparation. And even if you think that you might not do well, your first episode, you will probably fail. But then from there you can only get better.
Everyone starts somewhere. You can't just start with like 50,000 views.
Yeah, man.
Just think small and then grow. You know, be ambitious but not unrealistic.
And also just take feedback and use it lah. Even if you don't think it's good feedback, I think if you ask people, okay, if this feedback, I got this feedback, so do you agree that I'm doing this? Then say actually then just take it.
How can I make it?
You start from somewhere. If you got nothing and then suddenly you receive feedback and you're not happy, then you're not going to do it.
I think it's something to think
if people think that feedback is equals to hate, right? Then you shouldn't be doing it.
There's definitely going to be up and down, but you know, if you're passionate about it, if you really believe in your own content, go for it.
Alright. Then for Deepak yourself, being a journalist as well, I mean, you can bring up because you graduated from Masscom.
Oh yeah, I'm a Masscom graduate.
So
shout out Ben Davies.
Ben Davies will leave his Instagram. But even for you, for like students like him as well who just graduated from a Masscom diploma, what advice would you give people who are, or students who are looking to go into like journalism or anything that you're doing as well?
One motto that I have, right, is actually to always ask. So when I say that, I mean, you know, when I was in Republic Poly and taking my diploma in mass communications, the opportunities that were available in terms of an internship wasn't great, because no one from Republic Poly went to ST, for example, to do an internship. So I actually went to lecturers and asked, can I actually apply for SPH? And it's like
wait, ST is Straits Times.
Straits Times, yeah.
Bro, I was thinking ST engineering. Like,
I feel like someone told me that earlier this year, so I guess. So to me it was like, if you don't ask, you'll never know. Like if I was just happy with just looking at a list that was available and then going after it, I would have never gotten my opportunity at Straits Times. And that's what I always think. Even for local football, I think my first dabbling in local football actually started with Geylang International at the time, where I was doing like media content for them through a friend of mine. And again, if I wasn't keen on it, or if it was a waste of time for me, because I was still schooling at this point of time, I think the sacrifices that you're willing to make will help you in your career. So like I said, if I didn't ask for the opportunities, if I didn't ask whether this was available, then I wouldn't have gotten to where I am. And I think that's what a lot of local students need to do, where if you don't find an opportunity, then you got to keep asking. Because when you ask and someone rejects you, it might be paise for that day. But when you ask and an opportunity is given to you, then you are going to live off the opportunity for the rest of your life. So just don't be paise, don't be embarrassed. Always go after any opportunity that you can get, even if it's going to be paying you a very miserable sum of money, but it always starts from somewhere. And how well you perform in that space of opportunity will give you an opportunity later on in life to really do something that's good. So I think I'm really grateful for every opportunity I've had, even the Geylang one, which paid me very little money, but
actually that was where we met.
Yeah, that's where I met him, and it was super little money, and that was in Bedok Stadium, right? And my school was in RP. So like, and sometimes I was like thinking to myself, why am I doing this? But then I realized that without the opportunity, I've never been a local reporter.
And you all can actually find his videos there on YouTube.
Yeah, please don't. Please.
just want to give a quick shout out
to Penderis.
to our man behind the camera, Daras, because when you mentioned you from RP, you go to Bedok Stadium. This man over here stays in Eunos, and we are in Choa Chu Kang right now. And he comes all the way. And he doesn't even you don't even get paid. And you're still willing to come, and you're still willing to help us. So it's good to have people like this who are interested and who will do it.
Why do we have to?
Actually, if I could just expand on what Dipan said, there's this saying in Malay, not really a saying, it's a market saying. Nak minta. If you want, ask. If you don't get, it's okay. Then ask the next person.
Also, I just want to put this out there. I don't think a lot of people don't really mention this, but age is nothing but like a number. People can just if you, let's say you've been working at this engineering job for 10 years and you're maybe 40 now, but you realize your real passion is doing football, doing becoming an ultra or whatever. Just do it. People always like to judge. Especially because you're so old, this. It's nothing what? No, not you. it's really nothing what. And I want people to know this because I've had a lot of conversations where it's just I really want to do this, but I'm too old for it and I don't think I can. No, you're not. You're never old for anything. Just
go and do it.
Just do it. Do what makes you happy. And even if it doesn't pay well, at least you are content. Don't live in stress when you can live freely and broke at the same time.
Okay, so last one, because local football is something that we all love. It's something that we are really passionate about, and it's something that we really want to bring forth to everybody here, because we feel that they deserve it, and we feel that the players and everybody deserves it as well. I'll go through from last first to Dipan last. What is your hope for local football?
For people to give it a chance. I mean, the talent is there. It's not as bad as how people makes it out to be. So just give it a chance. It's not going to be like your Premier League, your La Liga, your Bundesliga, but I mean the standard is still there. At the end of the day, it's our own product. Why not give it a shot?
For the SPL, I want to see fans back in the stadiums. Like Nas said, give it a chance. It's not that bad, I don't want to. For the national team, I hope that we can get to the Asian Cup, and then from there maybe never know.
Never know.
Then wait to report back. We might have a potential Puskas Award winner.
Ui.
From a Geylang fan,
Oh, okay.
I would say goal of the season, but not.
But that goal, my goodness.
Puskas.
Yeah, I think
this guy is not really ambitious because a few years ago a Malaysian guy won.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
but that was a different level lah.
Yeah, that was
insane.
what the hell was that? I had no
I
idea.
think Nizam's goal was nice, but I think Puskas is shaking.
Goal of the season maybe.
Goal of the season.
Hey yo.
Yeah, sorry to answer your question. For me, forget the league, forget the national team. I think for me, I just hope the right people get involved in terms of decision making when it comes to Singapore football. I hope it's people who are passionate about the game, who want our local league and our local national team to improve, because I think for so long we are suffering from bad decision making. I can't point fingers at anyone in specific, but I think we are suffering from bad decision making, and we can see it very clearly because you can't say that it's because of luck or because of bad luck that we are where we are right now. We are where we are right now because of certain decisions that were made in the past, and we are living off it. I think in terms of popularity of the league, we cannot just say and blame the forces around us, which is your La Liga, your Bundesliga, your Premier League. Like I said earlier in the show, I think Thailand, Malaysia all face the same problem, but their league is still strong, and I think we got to really find the problem for it. The problem we have now in Singapore football is we haven't sat down to realize that it is an issue. We keep having conversations all around it, but we don't address the fact that we have a problem here. I think the sooner we get to it and realize that there is a problem, and then we start addressing it little by little, I think one day, maybe in 10 years, 5 years, we will be able to be proud of our product, which is the league and the national team.
Usual.
Me. Oh, it's coming me now. I was asking them, not me.
No, I'm asking you.
I think for me as well, I think because I went through the whole same thing before, going through the whole experience of not liking the local league because of, Premier League and stuff like that. Of course, when I came back, it was 5 years ago, my first game was Geylang versus Home United. Seeing the Ultras Eagles there really pushed like my whole wanting to be there. And if someone like me can actually yes, I still enjoy the EPL, that's for sure, but always give a chance to your local league, because at the end of the day, people who are over there don't have the same effect on you or you don't have the same effect on them as the ones that you have here, because they can actually see you, they can actually feel your presence. And I think my hope is that more people like me will turn around and actually give it a chance. Same thing as that's what you mentioned, give it a chance, because at the end of the day, you'll never know what you're gonna make out of it. You make good friends. I made fantastic friends from the podcast as well. Aaron, Kingvi, all of them as well. So definitely, it's been a very big change. You?
I mean, okay, honestly, right, only thing I have to say is, right, just go for it. Like, number one, it's not expensive. You're paying so little to watch a game. Number two, you got nothing better to do. You can just watch a game. And if you like football, you will like SPL matches. Even though you got no team to support, you got nothing. Just go and watch. The nearest stadium is like, let's say I stay Bukit Batok, so the nearest stadium is Choa Chu Kang Stadium or Gombak Stadium. There's a match there, and you got nothing to do. Just go there and watch lah. Like it's not that hard. And matches are not boring. The matches will be so exciting. Just because you're not cheering them or just because you don't have the passion for them doesn't mean like you can't watch. You just watch because you enjoy football. And also like when you go more and more, when you go to more and more games, you realize that people actually really care about local football, and you will join one of those people. Like when I went to my first ever game, Warriors versus Young Lions in Choa Chu Kang Stadium, it was just me and my friends. Basically, the way I got the ticket was my friend's brother was a mascot, and he was like, we were studying there at the KFC, and my friend just came and asked me, hey, you guys want to watch the game? My brother the mascot. Okay, I'll come. Then we all went to watch the game. We watched, and it was like 1-1, boring score the first half. Then second half, 46 minutes, already got one goal. Then it became 3-2. And then some old man who was a very, very passionate fan behind us was like, watch, Warriors gonna win. Joel Shibamba came on, scored 2 goals, and we won the game. And it was like the 90th minute, everyone was just cheering you. You don't even know who this guy is. I just found out, his name is Shibamba. Okay, Shibamba. So,
I was thinking whether it might be alcohol or not.
So like you never know, and like it's always exciting to see, especially if it's in real life. I know when you get the chance to go to European stadiums, you will feel the same. But you can why go all the way there where you can feel the exact same feeling here in Singapore. You know, that's all I have to say.
Or if you really have no money, go for an NFL game.
Yeah, exactly.
NFL
Just
games as well.
one last thing. I used to hear this excuse that people don't want to go because there's no atmosphere. But now because of COVID, there are no fans at the stadiums.
Yeah.
Even in the whatever league that you're watching. So don't give me that excuse.
Yeah.
I remember the first, like, when they first had no fans in the stadium in March. I watched one Hougang game and there was no fans in the stadium, but outside the stadium
outside.
you can see so many people.
The Bulls,
just
then you
cheering
had
there.
the Tanjung Pagar boys as well. They were all outside, and it's fantastic to see.
I even saw one of our cameramen, Tony. He was there at the match just taking photos, and you can just see he was just turning the camera to the fans outside, and just, like so many people were there.
Yeah.
So you can't say there's no atmosphere. People are really willing to just wait outside the stadium just to see.
So don't compare our league to other overseas leagues because there's no atmosphere. Right now everywhere there's no atmosphere everywhere. So you still watch it.
Exactly.
Watch lah.
And I think the main thing is that for us, why we do what we do is that as long as there's one person interested in local football, like you have the Hools, you have the Hougang, the Hools, you have the Geylang Ultras, we will still be doing this.
Yes.
I think that at the end of the day, I think that's what matters. As long as one person is interested in local football, we will still do what we do.
The fire will still be bright.
Okay, and with that, that's the end of the episode of the SG Football Podcast from us and as well as the Final Whistle guys. Be sure to check out their stuff on Spotify as well as everything else. We will leave all the descriptions in all the descriptions in the
All the links in the
all the links in the description below. Sorry, it's late, but yeah, we'll leave everything in the section below, and we'll be doing a little bit of a giveaway as well of their merch also. So do keep a lookout for that, and hopefully we'll see you guys soon on the next episode. Thank you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for
Bye.
having us.
Good to see you.
Having us.